Hi everyone, welcome to the August Garden Tour. It's hard to believe that August is coming to an end and September is just around the corner. And this week we've been dealing with extreme heat, some pests, and some critters in the garden. So come along with me on my August Garden Tour and let me show you around. First of all, I want to thank you guys for joining us on all the garden videos this month. It's been a lot of fun, and thanks for spending time with me today in the garden. So let's start here first with our pepper planter in the center of our garden. This is the main spot in our garden that gets full sun all day long, and we just got to take the shade cloth off yesterday. And the peppers actually fared very, very well during the heat. The California Wonder is starting to put on peppers again after our harvest about a month ago. And the crazy thing we've been dealing with a lot more this month is the bugs. We've had much higher humidity than normal. It's been up to 70, even 80% sometimes, which is really a lot for us here in our usual dry Southern California climate. So we've been dealing with a lot of holes in the leaves here. The cabbage loopers and the white flies have been going crazy, and I've had to go through and prune off a whole bunch of the leaves. So now that the heat is kind of calming down, I'm going to be spraying again with the neem peppermint rosemary oil. And if you missed that video, make sure you go back and check it out. So hopefully that's really helped you guys this summer with the bugs in your garden. So let me know how that's going for you too. Thankfully, covered with shade cloth, the peppers were able to avoid a lot of sun scald. But I do have a little bit of sun scald right here on this California Wonder pepper. And if you're getting a lot of hot temperatures in your garden, sometimes your peppers will thin up a little bit and you'll get this thing called sun scald right here. So you can see how that's a little bit thinner. It's not really a problem. You can go ahead and harvest your peppers, just cut that off. But peppers do like to be planted closely together, so they kind of shade each other and helps avoid that sun scald. So all in all, the peppers did great. The okra, you can see, is going crazy. Okra absolutely loves the heat. So if you want a vegetable that loves temperatures over 90, okra is one of the few vegetables that likes that. And finally, I have an okra right here. This is actually about the right size to pick okra, maybe even just a little bit smaller. The flowers are absolutely beautiful. There's one right here that's just starting to open up. And so we will definitely be harvesting it. So if you're growing okra, make sure that you check it every day because it grows super, super fast. This is the red burgundy okra from my spring garden seed collection. Okra is not my favorite vegetable, but it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful plant. Now, a lot of times what happens in the heat is the plants are just trying to survive. So they're usually not producing a ton. The flowers will dry up and drop off, a lot of times in temperatures over 90. So make sure that you're using shade cloth in your garden if at all possible. The watermelon absolutely loves the heat. I actually did see some new growth from the watermelon during our heat spell. We had record temperatures, several days over 100, but the watermelon's going strong. Some little flowers, lots of new growth, and a little baby watermelon right back here. And I believe this is the Charleston Gray from the melon seed collection. Don't know if I have enough hot weather and sunlight left here to get some watermelon off this plant, but here's hoping. I am really excited about this tomato. This is the Herzegovac tomato, and it's supposed to produce giant tomatoes. So I'm very hopeful. This plant has actually been growing like crazy, is starting to put on some tomatoes. I have it growing here in a 20-gallon Smart Pots. And you can see some tomatoes starting to develop. Now we have had a big problem also this month, it's crazy, with squirrels and rabbits, which we've never ever had before. So I've been covering a lot of my plants with these little net bags that I picked up on Amazon. So if you're having an issue with squirrels or rabbits, we're hopeful that this will help protect my giant tomatoes from getting eaten by the critters. Now I'm really enjoying this tomato support. It's really working out well. This is the Triton tomato cage from Gardener's Supply. I'll link up to it in the video description. And I really like it because it's super easy to put together. You can move these supports up and down. It works very, very well for containers. So I've really been happy with the support. It's super sturdy. And I believe it's about 7 feet tall, which hopefully that will be enough for the Herzegovac tomato. Now here's a plant that did not fare so well in the hot weather, the humidity that we had. We've also had a big problem with powdery mildew. And you guys, a lot of you guys have been using the Milk water spray, and that does definitely help stave off powdery mildew, but eventually it does attack most gardens. And my melons pretty much have succumbed to that. And I'm leaving this plant in because I'm going to do a video, actually a live stream on when to pull a plant, when to leave a plant in, and we're going to be doing that tomorrow on Monday. So this this plant will definitely be coming out, but it does still have a little bit of life in it. But I think it's pretty much history. Now, if you want a really super easy DIY trellis for a large vegetable or fruit, definitely try putting 2 tomato cages on top of each other. We've got a nice sturdy cage on the bottom, another nice sturdy cage on the top, which is inverted, connected together with cable ties, and it makes probably about a 7 or 8 foot tall cage. So it worked well for this melon while it was producing, and now I'm gonna pull it out and use it for something else. I want to show you guys this absolutely beautiful, beautiful California Wonder Pepper, ready to harvest. I've actually been leaving it on so I could show you guys on my garden tour. Isn't that an absolutely gorgeous vegetable? California Wonders are thick-walled. They're a beautiful deep red when they ripen. Super sweet, delicious on the grill. And it's been doing very well back here. I think it kind of gets a little bit of shade too from the fountain. And the pepper right next to it is putting on some brand new flowers, which is always a good sign, especially after a heat wave. So here in California, we get hot weather usually into November or December. So there's still plenty of time for the peppers here. We've really been enjoying the basil this summer and tomato, cucumber, basil salads. Now you want to harvest basil before it flowers for the best flavor, because once it flowers, the stems get really thick and the leaves change flavor. But I do always like to let a few of my plants flower because the bees love them and it really brings the pollinators into the garden. But this basil plant has just absolutely taken off with the heat. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I have it growing, and I think that's a 15 or a 20 gallon Smart Pots. We've really been enjoying the Scarlet Runner Beans this summer. They are right behind me here. Scarlet Runner Beans are an absolutely gorgeous, huge, tall, 8 to 10 feet bean. They're from my bean seed collection. Produce these absolutely gorgeous red flowers. Bring in the bees like crazy, and the beans are super, super tender, as long as you pick them when they're nice and small, about 4 to 6 inches. So I don't know how much longer this plant will last, but it's actually held up very, very well to the heat. And I did have this whole area covered with shade cloth to kind of protect it. They're growing on a cattle panel arch. So if you're gonna grow Scarlet Runner Beans, I highly recommend it, but just make sure that you have a nice large area for them to climb up, and they will produce beautifully for you. So let me know if you're growing Scarlet Runner Beans in your garden and how they've done for you this summer. Now moving here over onto the deck where I have the Smart Pots, I planted this little tomato here. This is actually a volunteer. It came up in another area of the garden. I transplanted it here in the berry blue Smart Pots. This is one of those new colors we talked about on the Fall Garden series. And it actually just took off during the heat wave. When I uncovered it with shade cloth, I was really surprised to see that there was a lot of new growth on it. It had grown probably several inches in a couple of weeks. So I have no idea what kind of tomato that is, so it'll be really fun when it starts to produce. It'll be a nice little garden surprise. And I popped in the Smart Pots too, some of the Big Duck marigolds. I absolutely love these. I'm going to show you these in just a moment on the hill. They're in full bloom over on the hill. These are a huge marigold. They're absolutely beautiful, and these are just starting to bloom, or will be blooming probably within the next couple of weeks. So in the past couple of days, I've been doing a whole bunch of brand new planting, pulling out the old, putting in the new. We had some squash plants in here that succumbed to powdery mildew during the heat and humidity wave, and I just popped in some brand new pepper plants. Now I started these from seed indoors about 2 months ago, and these are some All-America Selections varieties, as well as some varieties from my pepper collection and my container garden collection. So again, they're getting eaten by some bugs here, but they're definitely seeing some new growth, and you can see some flowers starting to develop right there on the top. Now, a strategy for southern gardeners is keep on planting. So we've got warm weather here into November, so we should be able to get a good harvest before the cold weather hits. But you also have to keep in mind the hours of sunlight will be less too as we get closer to the autumn solstice. But you know what? It's fun to experiment. It'll be a lot of fun to see these grow and produce over the next few months. So come on with me to the Smart Pots deck and let me show you what's going on here. Now we've definitely been battling some shade here on the Smart Pots deck, kind of crazy, but we have a big magnolia tree overhead and we're getting lots of shade here, so the plants really aren't growing too fast. So over here we've got the cucumbers. I planted these. I think I might have shown these on last month's video, but they really stalled out in the heat and they're getting so much shade here. So I may need to plant a more shade tolerant vegetable as the weather cools off, maybe some lettuce under here. So you just kind of have to work with your garden, work with the conditions that you have, and then make adjustments based on the growth of your plants. Now over here we've got some tomatoes. I'm not too sure what this tomato was. I thought it was the yellow apple tomato, but I'm still waiting for some tomatoes to come on. So we'll have to see. Hopefully it's the yellow apple because I really enjoy that tomato. Back in here we have the All America Selections Patio Choice, the yellow Patio Choice, which is one of my favorites. It's usually a very, very productive plant. So hopefully it'll take off here now that the weather's cooling off. We've got some peppers down here doing very, very well. These peppers were actually overwintered from last year, and I wasn't sure if they were going to make it, but we've got some brand new flowers coming on. And I've been feeding these. Vermistera has a new product coming out next spring as well called Vitality, and they are really taking off with the Vitality. It's a really powerful fertilizer. I've seen great results. So hopefully next spring you guys will be able to pick some of that up as well. Now here's a plant I haven't talked about a whole lot. I just moved this plant to this location. This is actually a passion fruit vine. If you guys watch our live streams, you know Nisha, our moderator, she gave me this plant. It was teeny tiny, I think back in December, and I've just had it here in this 5-gallon Smart Pots. It definitely needs a larger container at this point. It's really been growing beautifully here. I just have it for now in a little pot with this bamboo pole. But even since I just put it here 2 days ago, it's already grown and is reaching and connecting back here to this plant. So I have a new spot in mind for it. I'll show you that when we get around to this part in the garden. But Nisha, thank you so much for the plant. I wanted you to see it. It's still here, it's still growing, and it's my first time growing passion fruit. So if anybody has any tips for me, please let me know. The hill here behind me is what really takes a beating when we have a heat wave. And I actually had a big piece, a 30 by 40 shade cloth that I used to cover the whole entire hill. I posted some pictures over on my Instagram, so if you don't follow me on Instagram at CallieKim29, make sure you do. I post a lot of updates over there. So here on this garden arch, I have some cantaloupe and watermelon. But again, powdery mildew has really taken a toll this year, so they really haven't taken off. Got a couple little cantaloupes here, but I've had to prune back a ton of the leaves, so I'm not too sure how it will do, but it's been a lot of fun trying anyway. And over here we've got some zucchini squash and some yellow crookneck. And I think we might still be able to get some squash out of these plants. But again, I've been pruning back very heavily because of the powdery mildew. Looks like I've got some aphids right there too. So we'll have to get the neem oil spray out and take care of those. And hopefully that will help these plants take off again now that the weather's cooling off a bit. So here we have some cucumber plants. We've been harvesting a ton of cucumbers off of these. This is a lemon cucumber plant, which is really, really a fun cucumber from my cucumber seed collection. And you harvest them when they're about the size of lemons actually, but they're a beautiful yellow cucumber. They're delicious. They taste just like a regular cucumber, but they're really, really pretty to look at. And another cucumber coming on right here. I think this is a Boston pickling, which is a lot of fun. I've been trying my hand at pickling and been enjoying that as well. I've been using a ton of tree branch trellises this summer. If you've got some trees to trim down, it's a super easy, free DIY trellis. That's what I'm using here for the cucumber. But it's growing up so tall that it's actually reaching over to this other DIY trellis, which is made out of sheets of concrete remesh, I believe it's called. So it's climbing right on up here, all around the back. So these cucumber vines are growing strong. A lot had to be trimmed off the front, but the great thing about cucumbers is they grow so fast, they're growing a lot of new leaves. And in the middle of the cage here, we've got one of the large cherry tomatoes. We've been harvesting a lot of tomatoes off this. This is from my tomato seed collection. Unfortunately, the squirrels have been getting their share as well, but it's a really beautiful tomato. You can see what a good size that is for a cherry tomato. So here I've got some more cucumbers. I absolutely love a fresh cucumber. You just can't find them in the grocery store. So if you have a couple more months of warm weather, I would highly recommend getting some cucumbers planted. Take about 6 weeks from seed to harvest, probably closer to 8 weeks. And you can grab my late summer garden seed collection full of plants that you can grow here in the late summer months. So I've got some more Boston pickling, some more lemon cucumbers up in here. You can see how the bottom is pretty much trimmed from leaves because that's where we had all the powdery mildew issues. But look at the top, there's a ton of new growth up there, lots of flowers, lots of cucumbers coming on. So I'm sure we're still gonna get a lot more harvest. Now let me show you here a little lemon cucumber. So I like to harvest it when it's probably just a little bit bigger than that, but isn't that a beautiful cucumber? I think it's just so cute. We've actually been making some pretty big changes in the garden this month. Look behind me here, guys. Do you notice anything that's missing? The trees. We decided to take out the trees that were around the deck for a couple of reasons. Number one, they were blocking our view of the garden. We love sitting up on the deck in the evenings and really wanted to see the garden down below us as we relax in the evenings. The other thing is the trees were completely shading out this side of the garden here. Several garden beds were getting almost no sunlight because of those trees. So we got our view back, we got our sunlight back, and hopefully we'll get a lot more harvest now out of this part of the garden. One of my most popular videos this summer has been 6 crops to plant in August. A lot of you guys have watched that and have built the ladder mesh trellises that I talked about in that video, showed how to build. So here it's pretty exciting because on my ladder mesh trellises, this side we've got one of the cherry tomato plants growing, reaching almost to the middle of the top of the trellis here. And on this side we have a cantaloupe plant, so they're almost ready to meet in the middle. So these trellises provide a ton of extra growing space. Super easy to build. You could pick these up over at Home Depot or Lowe's. Make sure you ask in the contractor's department. They're not in the garden department. And hopefully you'll be able to find them too. A super inexpensive way to add vertical growing space to your garden. I'm very excited to show you guys the Chef's Choice green tomato. This has been an absolutely delicious tomato for us this summer. We've already been harvesting a ton off it. Has a ton of tomatoes that are not ripe. And this is a beautiful tomato. There's actually one down here that's almost ripe, covered with netting to protect it from the squirrels. And you can see how it changes color when it's ripe. Has some really pretty yellow stripes, and it's definitely a lot softer and gives a little bit when you squeeze it. So we should get a lot more to harvest, but I am gonna have to cover the rest of these with netting before the squirrels get them. Now, one issue we've had with the heat is the spider mites. They love the hot weather. Now, spider mites are super, super tiny and you really can't see them with your eye, but one clue that you have them is the speckling on the leaves, and sometimes they'll start to make a little web. I don't know if you guys can see that little web right there. But you definitely want to trim off any affected leaves because it spreads super, super fast. Once it gets infested, they will actually form a web over your entire plant. And when that happens, your plant is history. So it does definitely help to spray with neem oil, but I found it most effective just to continually trim off the branches that are affected with them right away. So this here is my purple tomatillo plant. I've showed you guys on last month's tour as well, growing on this tower here. It's a great sized tower. It's about 8 feet tall. I picked it up from a local garden center. Now the only problem with the tomatillos, lots of flowers, lots of little baby tomatillos, but the birds, you guys, have been picking these off like crazy. So I don't have any full-size tomatillos yet, and man, I sure am hoping I get some. So I'm really looking forward to the salsa. And over here, we have a green tomatillo. Now to produce tomatillos, you need 2 plants in your garden because they pollinate each other. The squirrels have been climbing up and breaking the branches off. So I've had to trim these off here, but the squirrels really have been an issue for us this summer. So it's been kind of a bummer. You might remember on last month's garden tour, the whole fence was lined with sunflowers, my favorite flower. Well, those also fell victim to the squirrels and to the heat. I would watch the squirrels climb up the sunflower and literally eat the heads right off the sunflower. So I guess that's one good way to keep them away from the garden, but I did have to pull out a lot of the sunflowers. They were just dead, they were not looking good. But this giant one right over here is still thriving in the heat. So Jerry actually got up on a ladder one day and tied a wire to the fence to hold the sunflower up, and it's thriving, it's still reaching for the sun, and it looks absolutely beautiful. So we'll leave that one in as long as we possibly can. But I do plan on dropping some more sunflower seeds in behind me, and hopefully we'll get some more growing here in the fall months. Now here's one of my favorite tomato plants as well. This is the Golden Jubilee from the Spring Garden seed collection, from the tomato seed collection. A ton of tomatoes on here. I had to trim back a whole bunch of the leaves because of spider mites, but it's actually given this tomato plant a lot more airflow. And look at the size of these tomatoes. They are so, so large. And there's a couple down here on the bottom starting to get ripe. We've already harvested a few, and it looks like there'll be some more ready to harvest this week. For southern gardeners, there's still time to get some zinnias planted. These are the California giant zinnias from my Bring on the Pollinators warm season collection. I actually just planted these Now for southern gardeners, there's still time to get some zinnias planted. These are the California Giant Zinnias from my Bring on the Pollinators warm season flower collection. The colors are absolutely brilliant. The pinks, the oranges, oh, they're just so pretty. Now zinnias will bloom more if you cut them back. So we have been cutting these back. There's more blooms coming on all around the plant and then enjoying the flowers inside the house. And right below the zinnias, there's the big duck marigolds I was telling you about earlier. Look at the size of these blooms. Absolutely crazy, crazy big marigolds, super heat tolerant, very drought tolerant, and they also help keep pests away as well. And these are an All America Selections winner, so you can find out where to get seeds over on their website. I'll pop a link for that in the video description. Another great late summer vegetable, if you're in a southern climate, is beans. I actually just put some new bean seeds in here maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. They grow so fast, you guys, and they're gonna grow even faster now that they have more sun since we took the trees out. In fact, oh, here we go. Some flowers and a little baby bean. So we should be harvesting these probably within a few weeks. And there's some other Royal Burgundy bush beans in here that have been attacked by spider mites, but I've been trimming the leaves off, and we're starting to get another round of production from these plants as well. Since a lot of my squash got taken out by powdery mildew, I went ahead and got another fresh round of squash started. Sometimes it's a lot easier to start fresh, brand new wave of plants than to try and save an old dying plant. So I planted some in the brand new Smart Pots colors. We got the berry blue, we got the mandarin orange. Here's some scallop squash in here, just starting to come up. I actually planted this in the middle of the heat wave, left it out in the heat, and look how quickly it's growing. This was not shaded at all during our 2 or 3 weeks of extreme heat. And here we've got a zucchini growing. You can see I think I've got 4 plants in here. I'll probably go ahead and pull out this smaller plant here just so I have enough room. But I thought the squash would look pretty kind of trailing over the wall. Or maybe I'll pop a cage in and grow it vertically to save space. I'll have to let you know on next month's tour. Pest and critter control have definitely been a big August theme for us this summer, and also replanting. So let me know how that's going in your garden. Here's another one of my very favorite tomato plants. And on last month's tour, I actually told you that this was an apple yellow tomato. Well, guess what? I got my tags mixed up. It's not an apple yellow, it's actually a chef's choice, either black or purple tomato. Because look at the size of this tomato, you guys. This is an absolutely giant tomato. So this might be my giant tomato for the summer. And again, we've got it covered to protect it from the squirrels. I already lost a couple tomatoes off this plant to the squirrels. Cannot wait for these to get ripe. So it's got several tomatoes on it. A lot of the tomatoes are still sizing up. Been pruning off for spider mite damage, keeping it covered to protect it from the heat. So it's been just a bit of a battle this summer, but we're looking forward to some great harvests off this plant. We've also been picking off a few tomato hornworms. If you don't know what tomato hornworms are, they're big green worms with a horn on it that absolutely chow down on your tomato plant. Let me just show you the damage that they do to your plant. What they do is they just chow down on the leaves. See how all the leaves are stripped off this branch? So if you see any branches like this on your tomato plant, that's a clue that you have some tomato hornworms. And start looking around your plant to find them. The other clue that you have them is when you see black droppings. So you can see down in here, got some little black droppings. That's also a clue that you've got the hornworms. We've really been enjoying the Ichabod eggplant this summer. This plant has also gotten attacked by spider mites, so I've been trimming the leaves off whenever I see the spider mite infestation. So hopefully this plant makes it, but there's been a lot of new plant growth and definitely some of these beautiful long finger-like eggplants. And these are about ready to harvest actually. You see that nice bright sheen on the eggplant? That's a sign that it's ready to harvest. Once it turns a dull color, it's really past its peak. So we'll probably be harvesting these today and maybe grilling them up tonight for dinner. Last month, I showed you some pepper plants in here that weren't doing too well. So I went ahead and pulled those out, replanted with some brand new plants that I started from seed, and really enjoying the peppers this summer and can't wait till these plants grow. These are several different varieties. I think this is a California Wonder. I've got maybe another Escamillo, which is a beautiful orange pepper. And I'm growing them here on the ladder trellises from Gardeners. I just put 2 sections of these little ladders together. So So it kind of makes like a little cage around the peppers, and they're planted fairly closely together so that they'll kind of shade each other in the hot sun. Really looking forward to some late fall and winter pepper harvests. Now here we have the Cayenne Long Slim Pepper. This is from the Pepper Seed Collection, a super, super hot pepper. We made some fresh salsa with this, camera guy and I did. Hopefully you caught that video. And these are absolutely delicious, but man, watch out. You don't want to use too many of them unless you're really, really brave and love the hot stuff. Now here I have another Herzegovak tomato, and what a difference. The Herzegovak I showed you earlier in the video, full sun in a container, doing really well. This one gets shaded out for a lot of the day, so it's just not really thriving. I'm thinking about pulling this one out, and this is where I like to plant my passion fruit vine. So let me know if you think this would be a good spot. Usually doesn't get sun until probably 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And I think we're going to be trimming back some of these trees to allow some of the more sunlight to get through. But let me know what you think. Would this be a good spot for the passion fruit? Now this eggplant on the other side of the tomato cage here is just not thriving. It's gotten attacked by spider mites. See all the speckling there? And here's a perfect example of how when the spider mites get out of control, they form this web over the plant. Hopefully you guys can see that on the video there. So I don't really think there's much hope for saving this plant. I'll probably go ahead and pull it and maybe plant some flowers or something else there in its place. As I've mentioned, I'm doing a lot more brand new planting. Here I'm actually trying out some new tomato varieties to me. I may be making a brand new tomato seed collection, so I want to try these out, see how they work. Here I've got Aunt Ruby green German tomato. Let me know if you've tried that variety and what you think. These I started from seed indoors, I think in June, and just transplanted them this week. This one is doing very, very well. It looks like it's really thriving. So I'll be adding some cages here and giving them some nice support. Here we've got the Mr. Stripey, which looks like an absolutely gorgeous striped tomato. Let me know if you've tried that one as well. And then the last one here I've got is the green zebra. So keep your eye out for a possible brand new tomato seed collection launching later this year. Now we're coming to one of my very favorite parts of the garden this summer, the red, yellow, splash of purple planter. And I completely redid this whole area this summer, and I'm really, really happy with the results. I love the pops of color. I love the vegetables that are growing here. Right in the middle is this beautiful Sweet 100 tomato. Again, covered with the netting because of that darn squirrel. But this plant has been absolutely producing like crazy. We're eating a ton of tomatoes off here. They're delicious, and they're so, so pretty, you guys. They grow here on trusses, and all the trusses are just loaded down. Tons of ripe ones, and you can see at the top there's a lot of green ones coming on also. So really, really been enjoying this plant. Now I did have a little accident with this plant the other day. I was trimming back some of the heat damage, and I accidentally cut one of the main stems. I was absolutely sick about it. I thought it was a stem that was just kind of hanging off and I need to trim off. But what I'm doing to hopefully maybe save it, and I don't think I'll be able to, but you know what? Experiment in the garden. I put a little spray bottle full of water mixed with some worm tea and some of the Good Dirt plant food. I'm gonna see if it's gonna root, but it looks like this stem is kind of dying. So really disappointed about that, but things do happen in the garden, and whenever I make mistakes, I always try and consider it a learning experience, not a failure, because we always can learn from our mistakes and then do something different next time. Now, if you guys have not been watching our fall garden series, go right over right now and watch them, because here in the colored smart pots, we're planting some cool weather vegetables for fall, and you definitely don't want to miss out on that. But we still have a lot of warm weather vegetables in here. One of my favorite peppers this summer has been the cherry bomb pepper. This is such a fun pepper. It ripens to a bright red. It has a pretty good heat to it, actually. So we just did a harvest video where we harvested these, and they're putting on a brand new crop. And right next to it are some purple peppers. Already harvested one round, putting on a new round here. I just love seeing the little baby flowers come out. The bright green growth, which again has a little bug hole in it, but we're going to be working on that this week. Here we've got some Black Beauty eggplant, which haven't produced for me yet, but hopefully will be soon. One thing we're also dealing with in this garden bed is shade. The trees up behind the garden bed here are in sore need of trimming back. We're not going to take these trees out, but hopefully trimming them back will open up the sunlight a little bit more. Another Black Beauty plant. And back in here is a couple pepper plants. We've got a really nice jalapeno that will hopefully start producing again. So See some little baby jalapenos on there. And flowers, we should be getting some more harvest off of that. I absolutely love the colors in this spot in the garden. It's really been garden therapy for me to be out here. So let me know if you have a spot in your garden that you love and that's been a really therapeutic spot for you as well. The colors, just beautiful. The mandarin orange smart pots right there. We just planted carrots in yesterday's fall garden video. Then this purple smart pots just planted some radishes. And here we have the yellow banana pepper. I just think this is so beautiful. Sometimes I have a hard time harvesting the peppers or the tomatoes because they just look so pretty in the garden. I know it's crazy, but let me know if you feel that way too. And this succulent right here, the bees have been coming in like crazy for this. I'm not sure the name of it, but it's really developing into a really beautiful plant for me. Now in this tomato tower right here, there's actually two plants growing. One is a volunteer. I showed you guys on last month's garden tour. I thought it was a butternut squash because it's growing like crazy and just a huge, huge vining plant. But what's starting to develop here, it almost looks like a cucumber. Now I do have a cucumber called the long green improved cucumber, so I'm not too sure if that's it. It's a pretty large plant for a cucumber plant, but it's going to be really fun to see it grow. The crazy thing is, this is the first year I've grown long green improved. I didn't start seed, so I don't quite know how that could possibly be a volunteer. So I guess it's just going to be a garden mystery. But it's always fun to have a little garden mystery. It's going to be fun to harvest those and see what they are as they grow. Now behind the cucumber slash butternut squash, whatever plant it is, there is a Chef's Choice black tomato. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's a Cherokee purple. So we've got one tomato coming on here, protected from the critters hopefully, and some more tomatoes growing in the middle here. So hopefully we'll get some good harvest off this plant as well as we go into the fall and winter months. Really been enjoying the peppers here in this planter. We have the back side of the jalapeno, which I showed you a few moments ago, with the tree branch thick twine trellis, really super easy DIY trellis to make. And then over here, we've got a poblano pepper with more coming on here. This is a nice mild heat pepper, great for grilling, great for salsas. So with lots more flowers at the top of this plant, a lot of new growth here. I think we're going to be getting a lot more poblanos on here yet this summer. Plant yourself some late summer cucumbers. These are Boston pickling from the cucumber seed collection, and hoping to get a lot more cucumbers off this too. It's always great to have a fresh new round of whatever plants you're growing. Now, did anybody notice what's missing from the front of this planter? For years, we've had a couple strawberry crate towers right here. So if you guessed that, you're right. Now I decided to go ahead and move the strawberry crate towers because I really wanted to show off the colors of this area, and I felt like it was just blocking the view. So let me just show you their new spot. Since we took the trees out here, I was able to pop the strawberry crate tower right here. It actually added a really nice dimension here to this area. And what I did is I transplanted the strawberries into a brand new tower. They're really getting crowded in the old tower. Wanted to give them some more space to grow. So you can see here the top tower has really taken off. I transplanted these probably a month or so ago. They're starting to bloom again. We'll probably get some more berries off this. In fact, here's a berry right over here. So we'll definitely be getting some more production off these into the fall. Strawberries don't produce very well in temperatures over 85, but they will survive a fairly cold temperatures in the winter, probably down to about 20 degrees. So if you've got a strawberry crate tower, cover it somehow during the winter months. It'll still be alive in the spring, usually. Now, the bottom two towers, I did just transplant the berries the other day. So they are going through a little bit of transplant shock. They look a little bit droopy, but they should be picking up very soon. And oh, I want to tell you guys, here's a strawberry runner. So strawberries will send out runners from the plants, start to grow roots, and then you can plant these for brand new plants. So what I like to do is just stick it in the soil like so, and you can hold it into place with like a landscape staple or even like a paper clip or something like that. And as soon as the roots get very well established, you can cut the runner from the mother plant and you've got a brand new strawberry plant. Now remember how I told you guys I thought I had an apple yellow tomato where I had the Chef's Choice black tomato? Well, here's my apple yellow. And these are the cutest little tomatoes. I actually got my tags mixed up. These are shaped like an apple. Aren't those just the most adorable little tomatoes? This is an All America Selections winner. and I'm loving this plant. I've just got it growing here in a Calichem 5-gallon Smart Pots, and it's got a lot of little baby tomatoes off this. So this is going to be a really fun tomato to harvest. Now, if you've been having trouble growing lettuce this summer, because lettuce is a cool weather vegetable, it doesn't like the heat too much, grow yourself some heat tolerant greens. We did a video a few weeks ago on planting heat tolerant greens. We planted in this little pot here some kale, some chard, some New Zealand spinach. Look at this, guys. It is popping up and it is looking good. Now, you remember when I told you the New Zealand spinach seeds are like little pods, and from those pods will grow several different plants. So here we planted one seed, and sure enough, we've got about 4 different plants. New Zealand spinach tends to trail over the pots, or trail, so I planted it on the edges so it'll trail over. The red Russian kale is looking good, and we've got the red chard right in the middle. These are all from my heat tolerant green seed collection. So grab yourself one of those and get some heat tolerant greens planted. We're really loving the clean new look of the area right here without the trees. And I also cleared out a lot of my holding area here. You might remember from last month, I had a lot of the black Calichem Smart Pots with a lot of tomato plants that were kind of my backups. So those are pretty much all got planted. So I moved those containers out of the way and kind of trimmed back the blackberries. Now the blackberries are pretty much reaching the end of their season now. They produce for about 6 weeks, and wow, we so love them. There's a couple more little ones left here that we'll be harvesting, but they really do have a season to them, and they're wrapping up here at the end of the summer. I ended up trimming back some of the vines that were just overgrowing this area, and as the plants go dormant, we'll trim those back all the way to the sticks, and we'll get good production next year because we'll be trimming them back. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way blackberries work. You want to trim them when they're dormant for brand new growth in the spring and lots of new berries. I really hope you guys enjoy the garden tour today. I loved having you with me to show you around. Let me know maybe a little tip that you learned, a favorite part of my garden, and I would love to hear what the favorite part of your summer garden is as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.